On this week's GTA 6 o'clock. After 71 episodes and over 500 days, Trailer 2 has finally arrived. Hello and welcome to episode 72 of GTA 6 o'clock, the world's most in-depth and best connected GTA 6 show. I am your host, James JJ Jarvis, and I am joined not in the studio, but we'll get to that in a minute, by Dan DD Dawkins. Hello, Dan.
Hello, James. Unprecedented times for all sorts of reasons, and we'll talk about that more just in a second.
Yes, it's quite the day, or I should say, as we're recording this, yesterday was quite the day. As you will all know, GTA 6 Trailer 2 has finally arrived after 71 episodes of GTA 6 o'clock. Rockstar's decided enough is enough, and they're going to give us some more content.
And before we start, shall I just say, are we going to replay the clip where last week we said, don't expect any more GTA content before the investor call?
No, we are not going to replay that. Also, while we're talking about things that happened last week and are different this week, you may notice some difference in audio this week. That is because I am not in the office with Dan. We are recording this remotely. I am, in fact, in Canada doing something for our other show that we make, and Dan is back in the HQ. But we are still both, in Los Santos together, so we can still analyze the trailer. What we're going to do is do a quick analysis. I say quick for our standards of Trailer 2. We're not even going to focus on any of the other material like the screenshots, the artwork, the character bars, and all of that stuff. That will come later, but we wanted to get something out as quickly as we could to give you our first impressions of Trailer 2. So that is what this show is going to be, and then we will do a follow-up episode that is going to go much, much, much deeper into all of the things that came out, because, Dan, there was a lot.
There was so much. And I get, and whilst I was obviously joking at the top, we've made a lot of predictions, many of which have become errant. The point is, this campaign has been really, really, really hard to predict. And even at the last knockings of last week's episode, we were both predicting, like with fair degree of confidence, that we still thought GTA would come out this year. Now, within 2 days of that show, Rockstar came out with a fairly innocuous tweet. Was it on Friday, James, as I recall?
Friday at 12:25 or something like PM UK or something, I don't like, ridiculous like that.
So is that at that fateful time out of the blue, we were both, I think, just messaging each other going, but I think you messaged me, James, with the news. I replied WTAF initially because I'd read it as it was coming out in May 26th, 2025. And I thought, oh my God, they've done it. They've stealth dropped it. Then I read it again and went, it's actually a year and a bit away.
Yes.
And then at that point, there was a very short statement from Rockstar Games, just reconfirming what is the new date, May 26th, 2026. We'll talk more about that later. And then they didn't at that point make it clear what we would get and when, apart from to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we could expect more information soon. And soon to me felt like it was quite ambiguous, and not, as it turned out, to be wait 3 days. And on Tuesday, you're going to get the absolute motherload. And please correct me if you think this is wrong. I think this is the single biggest drop of GTA information at once that we've ever had. Can you think of another occasion that might be bigger than this?
No, this is absolutely massive. And, I think it's all relevant, as we'll talk about later, as why it's so big and why they think that all of this stuff had to come out, well, not had to come out, but did come out yesterday as we're recording this. I think the timing is interesting. Like, essentially, as you say, Friday the 2nd was the delay announcement saying it's coming in 2026. Everyone then was like, well, how soon is soon? When do we get a new update? At that point, I was thinking, well, soon is definitely not next week. It's going to be at least post investor call. It
Yeah.
could still be the end of May, but they've given us a little bit of information, so they could probably go quiet now. They did not do that, but yeah, the Friday delay announcement and then Tuesday trailer drop is very much like trailer one. Announce it on Friday, release it on Tuesday. What they didn't do, though, is give you that pattern. Friday was the delay announcement with no other information, but it was leading up to a Tuesday drop. I guess they just didn't want to chance it. Like, they didn't want another trailer one scenario where we go coming on Tuesday and then somehow a load of stuff gets out.
Yeah,
It is the same pattern, I think.
Yeah, they didn't join the dots for us and say everyone on your monitors for this time. I think you've touched on the right thing there, because I think they're once bitten, twice shy with the previous leak of trailer one. So it's quite possible they just didn't want anyone to know, and they knew they could just drop it, and it's the biggest thing in the world. What's shocking is, I guess, the volume of stuff we got. I put out a little tweet yesterday saying it like it's almost like Rockstar have suffered another GTA 6 leak, but from the official channels. And like we tallied up from the website, there's 70 new screenshots. There's actually more than that if you add up all the artworks and some of the background pieces. There's 17 new pieces of wallpaper and artwork. We've got a fully updated website with like 6 postcards with deep character profiles with little 1-second videos. And then we got a 2-minute, 46-second trailer. So given that we've created 71 episodes of the show based on one trailer, it's almost like, and I'd like to think, Rockstar have given us a screenshot for every week we waited.
Yes, that's exactly what they've done. Or they're giving us a screenshot for every week coming up. So we can just talk about one screenshot for every week up until release.
Either is a gift. So I will take it. And it's overwhelming. Like you were saying, I almost don't know where to begin or what to do. I think this is really exciting for the show because we've got plans to go crazy deep and start drawing the lines between all this information. The internet's swimming in analysis and ideas, but we've covered this game extensively, as I say, for 70 weeks. So I look forward to us really joining the dots on this stuff and building out some theories. And there's things that, maybe I want to talk about in other shows that I'm almost scared to say in case they're true, because if they are spoilers, it's going to be really sad times. So that's something to think about as well. But yeah, like, where should we start? Where do we dive in, James?
Well, as we say, we're going to talk about trailer 2. We haven't really caught up properly because we're in different areas of the world. But what were you doing when trailer 2 happened? Because I tell you what I was doing. I was sitting in a hotel lobby, just about to get in an Uber to go somewhere, and the notification popped up on my phone that was like, "Oh, Rockstar Games post trailer 2." And I'd seen a lot of those notifications recently of everyone going, lol, look at trailer 2, and it's just a video clip. So I sort of I almost dismissed it as like, well, that's clearly not from the official channel. I won't bother looking at that. But something in my brain went, you should probably just click on it, and clicked on it and was like, oh, wow, this is real. So as Rockstar intended, I watched the first time I saw trailer 2, I watched it on my phone while walking out of a hotel to get in an Uber on like half volume because I was with a load of people, and went, oh, the people I was with, oh, guys, trailer 2's just dropped. And everyone was like, what? I was like, yeah, like it's out. And there was a sense of everyone went, are we doing other things today? Or are we all now just going back and having to write about this? So yeah, that was my experience. Obviously, I've watched it again on a regular sized screen, but watching it first time on my phone was quite the thing.
I think I ended up watching trailer 1 on my phone for similar-ish but different reasons, being out and about when it dropped. For trailer 2, I was actually on, and James and I will relate to this. James and I, in our other life, make video game showcases, and I was on one of our weekly planning calls while James was away, and it was just getting near the tail end of the meeting, and we were discussing something that I needed to research. So I popped onto X just to look up this detail. And then one of the gaming news ITK sites just written GTA 6 trailer 2. Here's the link. It's a fairly reputed source. And I was like, no way. Clicked on it, realized I'd ended up on YouTube on the official channel. Basically had to go back into the meeting and say, can we just wrap this up? I've lost my focus. It's GTA 6 trailer 2. Thankfully, we were pretty much at an end. And then it was just straight into, wow. And I think I posted on our account, in capitals, this is not a drill, trailer 2. But we were like not first with it. It was like 6 minutes after it had dropped or something, 6-7 minutes. Just an incredible. These are the seismic moments you live for, right? I think just to get, we've waited over 70 weeks, and then to get another trailer plus everything else, it's just so exciting, and it's why GTA is like the best video game for hype, even though nothing happens, which is wild. When you do get something, it's like multiple video game Christmases.
Yeah, it was very exciting, and to the point where, like you say, I didn't really know what to do with it. I just watched the trailer and then was like, this is amazing. And then you have to think, okay, now what do we do? Like, watch the trailer again, and then you're suddenly like, oh, maybe I'll just check out the official website, and then that's another 70 screenshots, a whole load of art, a whole load of more information. It's like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff, but really good for us. What it did do was confirm, as you said, that it's coming out May 26th, 2026, at the end of the trailer. That is a significant date for many reasons. One of which in particular is because it's Bonnie Parker's funeral date. Bonnie Parker from Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, yeah.
Like I mean, look, you can read into that as much as you want and say that it's very easy to take a date and find connections. But given that the story has heavily been rumored to be Bonnie and Clyde inspired, releasing the game on the date of one of their funerals is quite the thing.
That doesn't feel accidental to me. And I think actually, whilst this isn't our deepest dive into trailer 2, there's a few details I'm going to pull out that would say that they want you to dive deep. This, or we've all gone mad and you're seeing patterns and things that aren't there. But did you notice there was a lot of Rockstar developers who were clearly allowed to break their silence on various social channels yesterday? And on our account, I followed a lot of designers, and I'm sorry I don't know everyone's name and your various positions, but there was a lot of people basically saying, those pixels don't make themselves. Everything here was poured over. And I think there's a suggestion, and when you start looking deeper at the trailer and every single frame, all of it feels deliberate. Everything feels composed, and we'll get much more into that next week probably. But I think it just shows how long they've been thinking about the composition of trailer 2. I think that goes from the visuals and what's in it to the profiles they release and the way they describe and talk about the characters. So that's to go back to the Bonnie and Clyde thing to say, I wouldn't be surprised if that date was deliberate. And we've always talked about this being a Bonnie and Clyde story, which now feels truer than ever.
Yeah.
And there's a whole load of things I want to talk about, but I don't think it'll be today, about Lucia and Little Tells. And actually, loads of it roots back to the Bonnie and Clyde mythology. But I feel like that's going to be too big for today. So I'll tease that out there, but it's really exciting.
Yeah. And before I promise we'll get into the trailer in just a second, but just before we do that, I was going to ask in the notes, like, do we really think that it's coming out in May and, on May 26th? But the more I thought about it and the more, connections like that you make, I think it actually might do. I'd always thought this was going to be an October, November release as per Rockstar's previous GTAs and that kind of thing. But when you look into it a bit deeper, they have actually released quite a few games in May. Red Dead Revolver came out on May 4th in 2004. Rockstar's Table Tennis was May 22nd. Red Dead Redemption, May 18th. LA Noire, May 17th. Max Payne 3, May 15th. Red Dead Online, May 14th. So it wasn't actually, I thought, oh, I'm going to look this up and they're not going to ever release anything in May. It feels like it's a placeholder date. But there's a lot of precedent there that they have done some of their big releases in May, and it's gone really well for them. Plus the fact it's connected to what we believe to be the story themes and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, yesterday, if you had asked me, I was like, maybe it'll get delayed again. But today, I'm back on the confidence train that this is it. It's coming out May 26th.
Yeah, and I'm smiling, of course, because I was confident less than 7 days ago it was coming out in 2025.
Exactly.
But I agree. I think they've clearly got the confidence to put a date on it. When they put a date on GTA 5, they actually stuck to it. When it was a release window, they slipped. When it was a date, they stuck to it. I also think that May works for all the reasons you said. The other games are there. And there was some conjecture amongst, I guess, video game commenters and analysts. There's a guy I follow called Ryan K. Rigney, who runs a newsletter called Push to Talk. That's like a sort of analyst marketing newsletter. He was speculating that he thought he would, go back to October, but I didn't, based on what? I didn't see what the reasoning was. I think that was more of a gut thing that, Red Dead went back a few times. It might do again. I didn't really feel like there was a foundation to it. And for all the reasons you say, I think they're committed because they believe they can do it. And I think if you look at what happened yesterday and the volume of assets, how well realized the world looks. And I know there's a big difference between a trailer that you can kind of dupe and the actual state of the game today, but it feels like it's really far along. I don't know what your impression was, but I was like actually staggered. And then we should probably talk in a bigger way about what do we actually think about the trailer on a pure reactive level and what we think about the quality of the game. But I felt almost like part of my brain went, my God, it looks so far along and there's so many assets revealed. I would not be shocked. I'm laughing as I say this, by the way, if they did a Borderlands and went, actually, it's ready early. Here it is. Which would only be back to the time we thought it was coming out.
Yeah, but actually, it is ready in fall.
Yeah. Like, I'm only joking, but it's staggering how far along it looks. And to look at the GTA website today, that is how you would expect it to look, probably like a few months from launch, not a year plus from launch.
Yeah, this is almost the drop that we would expect much closer to release. That when we did the timeline, we were like 3 months out, you'll start getting some information about the various areas of the city and some of the different characters and things like that. But all of that is out there now. And I think there's a good reason for that, which probably leads us nicely into actually talking about the trailer and our initial reactions of it. Yeah, as you say, it looks phenomenal. Like the graphical quality and all of the details in the trailer and in the screenshots are amazing, almost to the point where I was like, this is being developed with a vision of like the next gen machines, PS6, the next Xbox, that kind of thing. In the same way that GTA 5 first came out on PS3 and then went to PS4, PS5, PS5 Pro. This almost feels like a generational leap from, okay, it's going to release on PS5, but then in 16 months or whatever, here's the fancy version on the new Sony or Microsoft machines. Like, it looks that good.
I did see some of the GTA fan accounts talking about this is proof it's going to come out alongside PS6. I don't believe that for a second.
No.
But you're right. It looks like it's almost a generational leap above. I was following a few of the developer people I follow. There's a guy called George Broussard, who was one of the original designers of Duke Nukem. He worked for 3D Realms. Like, he was tweeting about it, like essentially saying, he was like, almost like this is beyond comprehension what they're achieving here. He said, even with all that time and all this resource, you need a company who's been making this game for 25 years to even get close to what's being achieved here. I think he was like genuinely staggered. Like, no one can even hold a torch to this. It's beyond. And I think, I agree. And there was a lot of other conjecture about it's not gameplay though. Like, oh my God, please. This is going to look staggering, right? Of
Yeah.
course it will. Yeah, I thought the level was much improved. And I actually thought I haven't looked at them side by side or forensically, but I felt like the character models, the general resolution of the game and the detail looked improved from trailer one. Now I appreciate trailer one also might have been like a guesstimation of how the game looks, but I felt like it had taken a step up.
Yeah, for sure. There's loads of changes in it as well. Like Jason's model looks a bit more refined and slightly different than he did in trailer one. Now that might be a indication of where you are in the game when those scenes are happening, but it does
Yeah.
like significantly stepped up. And at the end of the trailer does say everything was captured on PlayStation 5. So you have to believe that all of that is, pretty close to what we're going to get to be playing come May 26th, 2026. And additionally, like look at the Red Dead trailer, Red Dead 2 trailer 1 to release. There is a difference there in which that game ended up looking better than it did in those trailers. So, I mean,
Yeah.
think about that for a second, that this might not even be, the final version of the game because we're still however many months out, like, well, a year basically.
A year out. And Red Dead 2 still looks better than most of the current standard leading PS5 games. It still looks unbelievable. So it's, GTA 6, you could argue, is almost like the first, maybe I'm going mad here, like maybe the first truly next generation game. And if you look at even the flag bearing titles on PS5, which would be something like God of War Ragnarok, or a game like I'm obsessed with, like Returnal, or I don't know, Horizon. You pick your game, right? They don't feel like they've moved the dial in maybe the way this is going to.
Well, all that being said, then, as we kept suggesting that we're going to do, let's actually talk about the trailer. As we said, we're going to do some edited highlights of this trailer. We're not going to go through frame by frame in this episode. There are plenty of episodes down the line that we will do that in. A bigger one is coming soon. We'll leave it at that. We'll do the classic Rockstar. Our bigger analysis is coming soon. It might be in a few days. It could be next week. It won't be next year, just as soon. One of the great things I wanted to pick up on is the way that this trailer starts. The first few seconds feel like a very direct reference to the 2022 leaks and all of that material that came out. It opens with Jason on the roof hammering some things in, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" And his response is, "I'm just fixing some leaks." And then take the trailer and all the other material that's come out that then goes on to confirm all of the information that were in those leaks.
Yeah.
Show them off at a level that Rockstar wanted them to be seen at. It's like an incredible subtle nod to the leaks, and they're just going, "Hey, look, you've seen all this stuff. We have seen all of the information and the speculation around the leaks. So you know what we're going to do? Our trailer is going to say, here we are to fix the leaks. We're going to show you character bios." So there's like no more speculation now around those 2022 leaks here when people are like, "Oh, it doesn't look that good," or "It's not going to be a complete experience," or whatever. This trailer basically comes out and says, "Fine, here is all the information you ever wanted. We're going to confirm all the locations you've been talking about that leaked back in 2022. We're going to show you all of the characters. We're basically going to say, like you said at the top, Dan, here is our response to the leak, and it's everything, but just on the level that we want it to be at." It was a great opening few frames.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. And actually, there's lots of things that we've avoided talking about on the show because they were part of those 2022 leaks. But there are characters that we've seen now officially that were definitely in the leaks. There were lines of dialogues from those characters that were in the leaks, that were in the strip club and places that we know to be real. There were locations such as Port Gellhorn, for example, that we knew to be true. that are now like officially 100% true. So all of that is amazing. That part of my conspiratorial brain, I agree with everything you said, of course, like was almost, my God, have they done this because there was a risk of another leak? As in, someone had threatened to reveal everything on the website, so they just did it themselves. But I think far more compelling is the idea that they've gone so big because they just wanted to officially say everything that had already been said a few years ago. So I think that's probably more compelling. But there has to be some reason they've gone so spectacularly big all at once, because you go back to the GTA 5 campaign, we were lucky to be drip fed between 3 and 5 screenshots at a time.
Yeah.
To get 70, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they're all so rich with detail. Like, I've been zooming in on frames of them, and you're like, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. It's just a gift. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I really do think that it is a response to all those videos. Like, back in 2022, when all that stuff came out, there was around 90 short videos that came out just showing off tiny clips of like the world and the characters and things. And there being so much material does feel like a direct response. And I would like to think in my mind that they looked at all of that material and went, okay, what is leaked here? And what do we have to come out and confirm and show everyone? Yes, that stuff came out, but look, this is what it looks like. And I'm pretty sure you could almost go through all of those things and match them up and go, this clip is the reason this screenshot exists. This location is the reason that they're telling us about it, because it's now official. Like, all of that stuff is for another show. But
yes,
really, yeah, it was a really great opening thing. And even in your notes, Dan, in those first few frames, there's a whole load of ducks as well, right?
yeah, this made me laugh. And this was what I was saying about the designers tweeting about, every pixel is deliberate. I took a screen capture of the very first frame where you see the kind of like Florida Keys, and you can see what looks like it's Jason's house as part of that strip of amazing houses on the bay. When you go to the skyline in the top left and zoom, it's what looks like 6 ducks in a line, which for me was going back to the phrase getting your ducks in a row. And there's literally 6 ducks in a line. And I just wonder if someone has gone, little in joke, this is about us, cleaning house. We're setting things straight. So not only is Jason saying, we're fixing some leaks, we're also getting our ducks in a row. And I think that's just, if true, an amazing detail, or I've gone mad. But there's actually a recurring motif through the trailer of 6 birds as well, like, whether it's GTA 6 birds constantly in frame, which might be an accident, or again, it might be a deliberate thing to have the motif of the 6 birds. Who knows? But it's consistent, is what I would say.
And there's loads of those little details throughout the trailer that, as we say, we will jump around a little bit and just talk about a few things here ahead of the full analysis. One of the early things I wanted to point out, Dan, is about 14 seconds in, you can see in the background that there is a few trash bins on the side of the road, and on top of one is a raccoon going through the bin. Now, I don't know if fans of the show are going to remember this, but I very much remember you having a pitch that maybe trailer 2 should be just a load of raccoons running through the city and going through trash cans. So you've got your wish.
Yeah, I'm laughing hard at this. I'd almost forgotten what I'd said, like all great analysts. I think my pitch was, and maybe you can remember better than me, was like, it was almost like a day in the life of a raccoon, and he would be seen foraging through the bin, and then he would reappear and go. It would be like a day in the life of Leonida, as told through the eyes of a raccoon. I could understand why they maybe didn't go entirely with that route. Is that what I said? I can't remember.
It was definitely something along the lines of trailer 2 should be raccoon focused. Now that, look, I'm not saying that we have inspired a lot of things in trailer 2, but there is quite a lot of stuff in here that we have talked about, which I guess happens when you do 71 episodes about what might be in trailer 2, you eventually land on some things that are actually in there. But there are a number of hints to things that we have talked about in the show in this trailer. And that is, probably coincidence. But at the same time, I'd like to think maybe a little reference to some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, and I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. Like, I know for a fact people at Rockstar listen to our show, and it might be because they're professionally forced to, in case we say something dangerous. Like, I know people who've worked in PR whose job it was to listen to our show. So I salute you, and I salute anyone at Rockstar who's listening now and who's listened to us over the last few weeks as we've variously said accurate or grossly inaccurate things and had to bite their tongues. But yeah, I'd like to, it would be lovely to think in some way some of our musings are being reimagined. And if you are the person who put the raccoon in the bin, you are getting my ultimate salute. And I think there are some things coming up. I've laughed at you for your inflatable crocodile / alligator obsession, but it feels like someone at Rockstar might not have. And maybe we'll get to that later on. But yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah, that's like not actually in the trailer. I think it's on one of the screenshots from the website, which we weren't going to jump into. But yes, there is a screenshot of a load of boats in the ocean, and I'm trying to do this from memory, a load of people partying on the boats. And on one of those boats, there is an inflatable crocodile just laying at the side of the ship. So thank you very much, Rockstar. Dan got his trash pandas. I've got an inflatable crocodile. Everyone's happy.
Oh, over the moon. Over the moon. The inflatable crocodile special edition dream is real.
It's going to happen. Don't you worry about that. So let's jump through the trailer a little bit more and pull out a few more details. There was a moment that you've picked out, Dan, about 33 seconds in, where you see just before this clip, Jason going into a store, and then the next frame is...
Yeah, this was just, I just missed it on first viewing, and maybe people saw it, but it just, having watched it a couple of times, it finally appeared to me. When you see Jason going through the till after bursting into that store, you look in the background and there's actually, like, he's clearly hit one guy who's on his knees, but there's another guy behind him who's completely laid out, wearing a sort of tie-dye cosmic t-shirt, but his t-shirt almost blends into the carpet, and the way the frame works, it almost looks like he's part of the carpet. But when you go through frame by frame, you can see him. So it's only to say that, he's laid some guy out, or that guy has been enjoying some recreational substances a little bit too hard. I just think, again, it's showing the benefit of just taking your time and looking at every single frame.
Yeah, there's so much to go through in this. And I think if we skip forward a few more seconds in that trailer, there's another almost blink and you miss it moment. The scene that directly follows the guy who's lying out on the carpet on the far left-hand side of the driving shot, which, if we're going to go into it, this looks like a first-person view, so that's exciting. But on the far left-hand side, you can see like workers on the side of the road who appear to be doing some, lawn maintenance or tree felling or something. There's a couple of them who are what looks like on their phones, and one of them using like a strimmer to cut the grass back. It's those kind of little details that you could see, which I assume is going to be all over the world, that we've talked about before, that there could be instance when there's a crash and then some recovery vehicles turn up and take those vehicles away, and it's all like a living, breathing city. And having these kind of hints drop in the trailer only makes me believe that that's going to be true, and we're going to see like the world existing as you drive through it.
Yeah, so you're right. So when he sat in the car, and then I think your eye is drawn to the signs with all the confirmation of the various locations.
Yeah, the big red truck.
Just on the central reservation, or whatever you might call it, there's a recovery. You can see a recovery vehicle, can't you? Just on the far left. And it does almost look like you could imagine like real-time responses to traffic accidents, which I dare say are quite prevalent in Leonida, especially if you're the one driving and getting involved in scrapes. So yeah, it's a lovely incidental detail.
And we skip forward a little bit more to Jason, let's say at the gym. Now, this isn't a confirmation, of course, that the gym mechanics are returning, but it's a pretty big hint that they might be. You can see him working out on the beach. A couple of little details here. The weights are called gains, which is a great reference to, gaining weight or gaining muscle while you're working out. Well done, Rockstar. But the interesting bit here is that he's wearing earbuds, like they look like, Apple AirPods, but, white in-ear things. Now, could this be a hint of on-the-go music, as, everyone has these days walking around cities listening to their favorite music? So instead of just having radio stations in the car, this feels like a big suggestion that you're going to be able to listen to music wherever you want to a certain extent.
Oh, do you know what? I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, because talking about the trailer being deliberately constructed, something we might quickly touch on is obviously everyone worries about what, obsesses with what the soundtrack is for each trailer. So we know quite obviously it's listed on the official YouTube description. It's the Pointer Sisters who do the track Hot Together for this particular trailer. Now, there are actually 3 other songs. I wasn't going to dive into them just yet, but I think it's related to what you just said.
Yeah.
3 other songs that you can hear Jason listening to at the start of the trailer until before the Pointer Sisters starts. Now, actually, I think what Rockstar are doing is showing you the ways you'll be able to listen to those songs, because when you hear all of these 3 different tracks, you hear it once as if it's being played as an official soundtrack through the speakers of your YouTube video, and again in a muted fashion as if you were the character listening to it. So one is him in the car. So we've always known that you're going to get music playing in the car. That's a big GTA staple. You get another one like in the shop, which might be like ambient music, but then you get this other one, which is him wearing the earbuds. And it might be that the audio changes to reflect the fact that it's a tell from Rockstar, basically saying you will be able to listen to them in ear. That would be the way I would look at that anyway. It's them being deliberate and saying there were lots of different ways to listen to music. So we're not just giving you 3 more tracks, we're showing you different ways you'll be able to access music.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, yeah, you're exactly right. There is going to be ways to experience music in this game differently. There's some things later on that I think you're going to get some bespoke events happening around music that we can talk about when we get there. But for now, yeah, I think that's a great point and something that is definitely going to happen. If we jump forward a little bit more, there's a little detail here that I thought was interesting to point out. About 46 seconds in, there is a drive-by, who I assume is Jason again, driving down a street with a wall full of graffiti. And on this wall, there was written a little sign that says, "Warning, no video without permission," and then a phone number, which I imagine if you're in game, you can call that number and get someone on the other line. But there's a few people around that being arrested. And in fact, this relates back to the music, Dan, because there's a track from a band playing in the background.
Yeah, this was when I was listening to the trailer and I thought, oh yeah, there's actually a couple more tracks here. So I started using, I basically taking the lyrics and Googling them and then using Shazam. And I got particularly pleased when I discovered this band, but because they were, to me, more obscure. But actually the clue is in the visual, because on the graffiti wall, it says, I'm going to say this wrong, Haiti or Haishi on the wall. How would you say it, James? Haiti?
Yes.
Let's say that, and then everyone in the comments can correct me for being a fool. But actually, that's a clue to the music you're listening to. So when he's in the car driving past the graffiti you just talked about, it's like a Haitian influence band who are playing. So that is a track by a band called Zenglen, who I was unfamiliar with. But they were like a seminal, I guess, like African music fusion band. And they're based in Florida, but they're like, Haitian, Florida African music
Mm.
fusion band. And this is one of their cult tracks from their album Five Etoile. But I guess what Rockstar were doing was literally telling you with the visual. Well, as opposed to what I did, and that was like humming stuff into Google search and or using Shazam to try and find it, which was farcical. Well, I should have just taken it much more at face value.
Yeah, I think the interesting bit is the message of like no video without permission, like, and what this wall represents. Like, I've seen some people speculating that this is a memorial wall, as if you go a little bit further into the frames, you can see two silhouettes on the wall of two people. And is that people, they don't want people filming it for some reason, or it's like has some kind of significance that we're not going to take any video footage of this? Are the people arrested? Have they been there doing some video recording and then the police turn up because they've got their phones or their cameras out somewhere where they shouldn't? It's quite a involved scene, this one, and I think opens up a lot of questions.
Yeah, and a sign like that, I think for us based in the UK, that isn't a sign that you would see, or messaging like that, like no video without permission. But it might well be that, and again, please correct me in the comments, is that something that's more commonly seen in the US, and particularly, in Florida? Or is that a replica of a real life wall that has that exact message? I don't know, but it's an interesting detail to pick up, and I dare say you're right. If you phoned that number, I imagine it would do something.
Yeah, there's quite a few phone numbers in this trailer, in fact, that if you note them all down, you can't phone them now because they're all 555 numbers, which is the number that all of the films and entertainment media use that are just like dead phone numbers. Like anything that's got 555 and it will never work. But in the game, I suspect that they will work, and you can phone them from within the game and then get someone on the other line and talk to someone or order something. So lots of hints here. Probably a good idea to note these numbers down, and that can be one of the first things that we do when we get our hands on with it. Call one of these numbers and see what happens. The next little bit of this trailer, we have almost reached the prison, and flying over the prison harks back to getting the ducks in a row. You have counted some more birds.
Yeah, it's because, well, in the first frame, there are the 6 ducks in a row, and actually on the same opening frame, there are 6 birds in the middle bottom of the frame. And then these 6 birds, not the ducks, reappear just outside the prison, and you count them, and they're flying in a formation of 6. Whether it's because they've got some insert 6 birds texture detail pack, or it's deliberate again. But at best, it's a happy accident. To me, it feels more deliberate, and it's just a detail to go. It's just for people like us, obsessives, to go. We really care about every frame.
Yeah, and we have, as I say, arrived at the prison. There's been a lot of speculation around how Jason and Lucia are going to meet and what kind of relationship they have. In all of the other material that came out around with this trailer, it seems to suggest that, well, and we see in the trailer, Jason goes and essentially picks her up from prison. But they did have a past relationship, we think.
I mean, she's clearly delighted to see him. So there's clearly a relationship. This is where I think we're entering it's another episode territory, because there's warmth between them. The timeline at this point is unclear. What we've seen or what we know of her or him before this scene takes place in the game, we don't know. I think what's significant here is 2 things. One is, well, before he goes to meet Lucia, the prison guard essentially intimates that he's seen him before. Says, "Do I know you from somewhere?"
Yeah.
The reasons for that are maybe almost another show. But one of them I'll just dangle this. One of them might relate to he's actually a secret Fed theory, which may or may not stand up under evidence, but it's worth putting out there because I've seen people speculating that, as in he might not know him from being in prison, he might know him from working on the other side. That's what we don't know. That's another set of things that probably need evidence to stand up. What is also significant is if Lucia is coming out of prison, which we know she is, Why is it only Jason waiting for her? Why is there nobody else, family, friends, whatever, stood there? That might be more significant than we realize.
Yeah.
But she's clearly delighted to see him, right? Like they meet as if they were lovers, which seems to be the obvious intimation of everything that follows.
Yeah, and then the question around where do we start the game? Like, how does this open? Is this right at the beginning? What's the backstory here? Do we get to find that out? Are we going to find that out in a, a prelude type situation? Is it just going to be a cutscene? This happened, and then we go 13 years later, and here we are. She's coming out of prison, or whatever. It feels like this has definitely got a lot of. It's very loaded, this scene, and I think, yeah, like you say, almost an entire episode's worth to talk about it. What we can quickly touch on is that Jason is wearing a shirt that says Leonida Marine Center. That doesn't feel to me like the kind of shirt you would wear if you were just, out and about, unless you really love the Marine Center. But I'm not getting the vibe that Jason does. So I'm putting it out there that he could work there, or at least did work there at some point, and is now wearing his work clothes. But it feels to me like he's got a job at the Marine Center for some reason.
Yeah, it's so hard to know. Like we know that from what we know of the other characters, he has a job working for Brian or Brian Heder, who's the guy we see at the start of the trailer, who's basically letting Jason stay in the house for free on the proviso that Jason runs little errands for him. And I guess those errands are basically drug based because Brian's got his fingers in many pies. And I think maybe is the gateway character to a bigger mystery involving drugs, crime, etc., etc. And that might be a low level where we see, like we talked about at the start, with Jason kind of bursting into the room with the stoners. That feels like a low level errand that he might run for Brian Heder, whatever his name is. Maybe I've not stood that up. Right, that's just potentially what it might be. So yeah, and does he work? Could he also be odd jobbing at the Marine Center? Sure, quite possibly. And when I saw that, I did think of our last week's episode, and when we talked about real world locations that might link up, I didn't know if any of them felt like analogous to what we talked about last week, or if in fact that was something else.
Yeah, definitely lots of things to go over here. I think another thing that we're just skimming over is the fact that we now know officially that this character is called Jason. Like, we've been calling him Jason for quite a long time, for a good 70 or so episodes, but never were totally sure. Like, again, it was something that was in the leaks, but having it now confirmed, getting everybody's full names and everything as well is also very helpful. But yeah, like, actually 100% called Jason.
Yeah, Jason Duval. I've not done too much diligence on the meaning or otherwise of that second name. Another thing that's also maybe for another day is he speaks a lot in this in this video, and you could probably do a bit more reason guesswork on who that voice actor may or may not be. Maybe. But I definitely haven't done that research, so I haven't got much more to add at this point in time.
No, what I can add to this scene is when Lucia does come out of prison, she is wearing her a t-shirt, which is civilian wear, and if you enhance it a little bit and pause it in the right place, you can see that her t-shirt says, "I went down," and then underneath, "on the Leviathan." I'm pretty sure it says Leviathan, and then there's a picture of like what looks like a creature. And I think this is a very heavy hint to it being a theme park ride, because that is the kind of merchandise you would get from a theme park that is, has a big roller coaster that's all set up in a very spectacular way. And she has got a t-shirt that says that. I'm pretty sure this is maybe they went there together, but it's a nice little nod to something that is almost certainly going to exist in the world.
Yeah, agreed.
And then if we jump forwards a little bit more, Lucia is now out of prison. We can see that around 1 minute 13 into this trailer, as the Rockstar Games Presents text is on the screen, her and Jason are rolling around in what looks to be a pretty low rent motel or apartment thing. The interesting bit here is Lucia in this clip still has her ankle tag on.
Yeah, I was thinking that. It looks like, or is presented as if it's a scene that follows them reuniting.
Mm.
I guess, they were happy to see each other and probably sped immediately to a motel to share stories of her incarceration and other things.
Yes. But yeah, so that, as we have talked about in previous shows, hints to me that she is going to come out of prison but have an ankle tag on and not be able to fully live the life that she perhaps wants to, having left prison. Like, I think there is going to be a period where Lucia especially has to do some menial things, which we do actually see a bit later.
Yes.
127-ish, Lucia is like litter picking almost on the side of the road. She's in a big high-vis jacket, picking up some trash. It feels like that is her community service type thing that she's having to do as one of the requirements of leaving prison and wearing the ankle tag. And you can then jump even further into the trailer towards the end, where you see her coming home from work, in air quotes, wearing her high-vis jacket and meeting Jason and being like, oh, I finished my day at community service or whatever. Now we get to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. It does look like a sort of moment of not domestic bliss as such, but that's the reality of where she is in their current existence. I wonder if those scenes are like the spark that lights the flame, or the prelude to conversations of them going along the lines of, we can't live like this, or we've got to do something different, or whatever it is that accelerates some of the stuff we see elsewhere in the trailer. And it's really hard to know the chronology, but if you look around, say, the one sort of 17 mark just after they're in the motel, and then looks like they're taking part in what looks like a quite high-tech siege where they're wearing the masks.
Yeah,
that doesn't feel like a thing they would do as their first job. It feels like something that's a bit bigger to me, right? It looks like a much bigger sort of high-style situation.
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing about the kind of things that we assume, going to be doing to, take those steps up the ladder. This is, if you pause it and zoom into one of those screens, you can actually see it says Sin Frontera National Bank. And then on the screen, it says security lockdown in effect. So this is effectively Jason and Lucia, it looks like, robbing a bank in the same way that perhaps we're used to seeing and doing in GTA 5. And I can only assume that this has gone through the same planning and research phase that you had to do in 5, and pick your approach and work out how you're going to do it. And all of that stuff seems to be perhaps happening in 6 as well, but on a slightly different level.
Yeah, and this looks to be where you're getting into the provenance of characters such as, and I'm just going to pull his name up right now because I'm going to mispronounce it otherwise. There's so much detail on the official website. So you've got where is he? You've got like Brian Hedder, who's the sort of seems like the more cuddly drug dealer. But then you've got someone like Raul Bautista, who is described as experience counts, confidence, charm, and cunning. Raul's a seasoned bank robber, always on the hunt for talent, ready to take the risks that bring the biggest rewards. He looks like the sort of person who would organize these types of heists we're seeing there. And in fact, there is a scene on the official website, and we'll go into this properly in another show, where he's holding an automatic machine gun and sort of tactical glasses. It looks like a scene from Heat, basically.
Yeah.
And that feels like he's a character who's probably the gateway to your experience accelerating. And it literally says that. It says a professional adapts. Raul's recklessness raises the stakes with every score. sooner or later his crew will have to double down or pull their chips from the table. So, what role he plays, we don't know, but he looks like he's more aligned with these more high-tech bank heist moments.
Yeah, and just how Jason and Lucia fit into that is another question. Obviously, they're doing their own thing. They're trying to progress throughout, their lives. I assume get more money and get bigger and better things. And you can actually see that in the clip after that, where they've robbed that bank. They come back home. Now, obviously, this isn't sequential, but
Yes.
Lucia walked in and says, "This place is just the start." And it's not a bad house or apartment that they're in, but that her saying that hints to me that there is going to be bigger and better things, possibly bigger and better houses that you progress throughout the game.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
start here in this, little rundown place. The next one up is here. If we get more money, we can go here, and eventually we're in the penthouse, living the high life. Does that all, as we've talked about, come crashing down at some point, and you essentially have to start again? Who knows? But this is definitely a hint to we start here, we get to here. Plus, they have a snake
Yeah.
for some reason. I mean, that's, I guess, part of the it's slightly exotic to have a snake, I guess. I'm assuming they're not going to start when the snake is not the first thing they buy, but that it could be the start of like, hey, we're getting bigger and better things. We own a snake now. We're those people.
Yeah, and there's a whole other analysis of like the animals we see in the trailer. Like there's near the start of the trailer, there's as he's leaving the convenience store, you can see the cat scratching itself on the or like near the ATM.
Yeah.
My plan would be to create like a really big document of all these different things we're seeing in details, but again, not for today. I wonder if things like snakes and like aquariums are, like you say, things you can use to pimp your crib, but we'd need to stand that up a bit more.
Yeah, there are also, we haven't mentioned, like a couple of dogs in this trailer, one of which is very subtle in the background. There's another one that's just sitting on the sidewalk, but that's 3 different breeds of dog, at least, that we have seen so far. As I say, I haven't even meticulously gone through all the screenshots. I'm sure there's probably a few hiding in those as well. But
Yeah.
we'll make a big old document. There's a couple more things that I wanted to touch on for this episode, at least.
Yeah.
One of which is in the bar scene, which is towards the middle end of the trailer. There's a sign here that says Fresh Fish Friday. Now, I'd like to think that this is a callback to all of the things we've been talking about is there going to be a date or week system in GTA 6 somehow, and that actually, if you went to this bar on a Friday, you're going to be able to have some fish. There is another reference to this near the end of the trailer when they're in the strip club with a big sign that says Sinful Sunday.
Mm.
I can't believe that all of these things have been created anecdotally as just, some world building. I am almost certain now that there is going to be some kind of day of the week system within this game, that different things happen possibly throughout the months, but certainly throughout the weeks that cycle through, to the point where this same bar, there's another sign on the wall for a band called the Hummers and the Strummers, which is a great name for a band. Well done, Rockstar. This actually has a real date on it. It says August 24th, 7 p.m. till late at the Rusty Anchor, and they're going to be playing music to make you cry. All of this feels connected. Like the Rusty Anchor is obviously the place that they're in. Hummers and the Strummers is a band that we haven't seen in the GTA universe before. They're going there on a specific day at a specific time. Connect that to the Fish Friday, Sinful Sunday. I just think this all connects into a calendar system existing in the world.
Yeah, we've talked about this many times, and it's so hard to know for a fact, of course, but like, given the level of intentionality in the trailer, these are good tells. And I do increasingly feel like, as you say, we could see some sort of dynamic calendar system and date system. To what level, let's wait and see. But it does feel like a step towards realism that will be in line with their stated aims for the game.
Yeah, and thinking back to the leaks, there's a couple more hints in this trailer that if you were all over those things and did see those videos would make sense, and would normally be a surprise, but because of the leaks, it's slightly less of a surprise. But there is about 151. You can see the metro system in the background that's just pulling out of the station, which was one of the clips in the leaks. I assume this is again to like say we're just fixing up some leaks. We're going to confirm these things for you. Here is the metro that you think might be in the game. We're going to show it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also another instance of that, like the very end of the trailer when they're in the motel room and having a big cuddle. That is also, I'm pretty sure, the same motel room that was in some of the leaks, like exactly the same setup. Again, I think it's a callback to say, look, stop your speculation. We're going to show you these things in the way that we want to show you them.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
And then just to get the trifactor of things that we've talked about, trash pandas in the bin, inflatable crocodile on the boat. There is also last week's episode stars. The manatees have returned,
Yes.
which I saw you put out on our social media, GTAV o'clock on X. There is a guy just around the 2 minute mark who's wearing a manatee sports jersey, which I imagine is a take on the Miami Dolphins. Manatees and dolphins are pretty similar. I would say that the Vice City Manatees are going to be the equivalent of the Miami Dolphins in this game.
Yeah, the colors of the jersey are essentially the same. The style is the same. It's probably an amusing coincidence because we discussed manatees at length on last week's episode. But it does show that all the research is coming from the same place because, as you pointed out, that there are the Crystal Lake area where you can actually swim with manatees in real life, and in this version of the world, Leonida, that's the influence of the sports team.
Hmm. And one final nice thing is you can actually see in this trailer a PlayStation 5. Now, as we mentioned at the top, it says at the end all the footage was captured on PlayStation 5. If you skip to about 2:17-ish, when Jason and Lucia are in their apartment, she has just come home, you can actually see two PS5 controllers on the table. And in an earlier scene, when the ammunition advert is on the table, there's an actual PS5 console just off to the left-hand side of the screen. It's not exactly the same size, but it's definitely a PS5 because the light's the same.
Yeah, this is a good point actually, because my gut was it's clearly a PS5 and the controllers look more like DualSense controllers than anything. Quite a few people told me off on social for saying it was a PS5 controller, saying, I know my DualShocks and that's a PS4 DualShock controller. Like me, yeah, I get it, maybe, but like the console is definitely PS5 flavored, right? Like so, and that makes more sense to me because what that briefly threw me out thinking they were PS4 controllers, because then you start to go, when is this game actually set? Because the PS4 came out in 2013, and only got superseded in 2020. So if it is a PS5, the likelihood of this becoming an essentially present day tale is much increased. So I don't know if they've officially said the date that it's set, but like I'm assuming like now, give or take. Is that your
Well, like, if they've
feeling?
got I mean, this feels like another confirmation of all the things that we've been speculating about. It's almost a way of dating the setting because, as we know, the PS5 came out November 12th, 2020.
Yeah.
And if they've got a PS5 in their apartment, then it has to be set post 2020, but before now, because that's so it only gives us quite a small window there. of 3 or 4 years of where it's going to be set.
Yeah, and that's it. It will be a significant difference. We're actually a PS4, and you're almost winding a decade back, and that's much more significant. And this will become much more significant when we talk about characters, history, and lineage, and some lines you can draw between games and characters and theories. That gets dramatically affected if the game was set in, say, 2013 versus 2025.
Yeah,
It makes a
it's
big.
definitely a PS5. Like
Yeah, it's
the
got to be.
PS5, it's PS5 controllers. Go back on the internet and tell those people, send them the screenshot of the PS5 and go, look, it's a PlayStation 5. Plus, we know that, well, it's been heavily speculated that Sony has a marketing deal with Rockstar for the release of GTA 5. It all makes sense that, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we put your console in the game?
Yeah, it definitely looks part of a sort of cozy, really subtly done relationship. But the fact that the very last message is that it says it was captured on PS5, doesn't it? Not captured on PS5 Pro, captured on PS5,
Yeah,
which
which is a
suggests that,
crazy statement. Let's be honest. Just base PS5, this is saying it's captured on, not even, you know, the mid, the step up, not even PS5.5 before we get to 6.
yeah, and this is the thing, like it's technically a 5-year-old console coming up, and it feels like only now are we seeing what it's truly capable of. And people are talking about, what will they do for PS5 Pro? Could it be on PS6? Like maybe all in good time, but this is clearly a game built for like that generation. It's built for PS5, Xbox Series X, and it's still maintaining it's going to be on S. What's it going to look like on the S? Like, will it run on the S? I guess it must, because they're saying it will. Like, what difference is that going to make? So that's all to come, right? All that tech analysis stuff, but
Yeah.
it's proper witchcraft stuff to see a game this quality, just running on the base PS5.
Yeah, I do not have to worry about that because I will be playing it on PS5. So it doesn't matter what it runs like on an Xbox Series
Yeah,
S.
yeah.
That is, for now, the end of my notes. As this quick deep dive into trailer 2 wraps up. I don't know if you have anything else, Dan, we want to quickly cover.
I've got stuff I want to talk about, but in a weird way, either I'm going to prove myself wrong in my research, or I'm going to get gazumped by someone else who beats us to the punch. But I was doing a bit of research around the notes about the characters and their backgrounds and came up with some really interesting stuff or theories that I think we could probably save for another episode. But it got me really excited. And a few things got me so excited that I then actually disproved them as I was researching them, which was annoying. But there's some other things that I think could start to tie together 6 to previous GTA games in actually a really compelling way, which has a much deeper thematic lineage than perhaps people realize. But I'll dangle that there for now, and let's come back to that in another show.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for listening. I know there's been a lot to go through here, and we are barely scratching the surface. There is so many more episodes to come. The good news for all of you out there who've been saying, oh, you're really scraping the barrel with this one, is that now there is so much content, as we say, over 70 screenshots. There's 10 little video clips. There's all the descriptions. There's all the locations to go through. This analysis of the trailer was very light touch in a way. Like there's so much more. We've skipped about 2/3 of it and just picked out a few key scenes. And still, this episode is, I don't know, over an hour long. So much more to come from us. Thank you all for listening. Really excited to hear what you've seen in the trailer and your theories and everything. So if you're watching on YouTube, please drop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. We will tally them up with some of our thoughts and come back on the full breakdown episode. You can get in touch with us on email, gtavioclock@gmail.com, and you can also follow us on X, GTAVOclock. I think that's it, Dan. Others to say, of course, following this episode, there will be a newsletter.
Yes. So the newsletter will, let's see how we go, is due out Thursday at 6 p.m. BST. My intention for this week's newsletter is to round up the best of all the different analysis out there. So hopefully it should be a kind of one-stop shop of the best theories, detail, deep dives, all that kind of stuff, which is the stuff we look at for our own research. So I guess what I'll be doing in a way is showing our notes and workings out, and just sharing that on a really easy to share newsletter.
Yeah, just post a link to this episode and you're done.
Yeah, well, exactly. So do that. But if, for people who like reading, you can get those links. And so to get that newsletter, which is free, I will add, just go to gamesradar.com/newsletter and choose GTA 6 o'clock from the selection of newsletters you can pick. But yeah, that'll be, and I'm scared to say it, but that'll be around about 6 p.m. this week, depending on how I get on with the analysis.
Yeah, and as you're listening to this, probably should have said this at the very beginning. This episode might have gone out slightly late because of the very nature of when everything dropped and how we are recording it. But let's see, we got it as close to 6 o'clock as we could. There may be another episode later this week, possibly early next week, when we get back into the swing of things and do a full deep dive analysis. But like, it's such an exciting time. Like this week or yesterday, there was so much to look at that it was almost overwhelming to be like, just where do we start? What do we do? So we decided to do this little highlights episode before jumping in to a lot of the deeper stuff. But yeah, like, I'm very excited. So much stuff to talk about. It's going to be a very easy next 50 or so weeks before the release.
Easy peasy. Screenshot a week. Bish bash. We're done.
There you go. Thank you all for listening, and we will be back next Wednesday, or maybe before, for another episode of GTA 6 o'clock.